We started. Okay. Welcome, YouTube, to another discussion of the Atheists Hangout. My name is Dr. Soita. I hope I'm visible. Yes, I am. Today, we are discussing objective morality. How we phrased the question is morality objective? Is morality objective? Now, before we get into the discussion, I'd like to give the context for this particular topic. Where did it come from? It was suggested following a debate. We didn't expect it to be a debate, but it eventually turned out to be one. A debate with believers about what does not count as evidence for God. And then there was also another discussion we had about addiction. And the reaction that came from one of the vocal Christians among us is that atheists have no objective moral values. So they can't have any justification for criticizing Christianity. That is a common card used by believers. So this is what informed the discussion. However, because we had already had the discussion about secular versus religious morality, that's not what we will dwell on specifically. We will dwell on the objectivity or subjectivity of morality. Of course, we will bring in religion eventually, but that's the angle we are taking. We're not just looking at which one is better. We're just looking at more objectivity, whether it is objective or subjective. Now, before we start the discussion, these were the subtopics shared by the moderator. I'll have you know that I am not supposed to be the moderator. Our moderator is called Papsi. He lives currently in Trans Nzoia. He says there's a project that he's doing there. So I think maybe it's challenging for him to commute and what have you because he's in the interior. This is the reason why he sent his apologies that he might be late. I encouraged him to try his best and join us no matter what time he arrives home. So maybe when he does find us, we will switch moderation. But in the meantime, I'm going to do it. So the questions that he shared, the subtopics were as follows. Number one, obviously, the definition of objective morality. Then number two, morality and evolution. What do we know about the naturalistic approach to morality, the evolutionary source of morality? And then number three, we have Christianity and divine command theory. Christianity and divine command theory. Of course, we will relate that to objective morality, because that's the topic of the day, the Christianity and divine command theory. Do you think those ones are objective or not? Even the previous subtopic of morality and evolution, does that mean that morality becomes relative or objective because of evolution? And then the last thing we will address is cultural relativism and moral universalism. And moral universalism. So let's begin with that number one. How do you understand objective morality? In fact, he added the philosophical perspectives, but it's okay. We don't need to delve so deep. Just tell us what your understanding of objective morality is. And also, you can explain to us whether you belong to that camp. Are you an objective an objectivist. Yeah, a moral objectivist. Are you an objective? Tongue twister. Are you a moral objectivist or not? Yeah. So let's start with that. The definition and where you belong. Are you a moral objectivist or are you a moral relativist? You know, it can be a relativist or a subjectivist. Yes, I see Morioki's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Yeah, thanks, Jokers. For me, what I'll say, this is the way to go, so follow it. Like, there's only one way to go, so follow it. That's, for me, that's objective. Yeah, that's it.
Wait, so you're defining objective morality as one way to go?
Yeah, this is the way to go. Yeah.
Just explain that. Are we going to Mlolongo? What do you mean? I'll give an example.
Like, okay, this way should behave, and this is it. And like, this is the right way of doing it. No other way. If you don't do this way, then it's wrong.
Aha. He's saying that there is a set way. Objective morality to him is when you have a set way of doing things, and if you go contrary to it, then you are misguided. It's not acceptable in moral objectivity. Aha, that is Morioki's perspective. Let's hear from others. How do you understand objective morality, and are you one? Are you an objective moralist? Are you a moral objectivist? Don't be shy, guys.
Douglas, maybe I can add, it will depend again. It will depend on the circumstances. I forgot to say that. It depends.
Now, when he brings in that aspect of it depends, don't you guys think now he has changed the definition? Because now that becomes something else. Anyway, they will answer. Let's hear from Charles Wandalo. Oh, Wandalo is here. Special dedication. This topic is a special dedication to you, Charles Wandalo, because you love that argument. So welcome. I hope you can stay around for longer. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm actually wondering why you guys stopped meeting at 8. Because some of us sleep by 10. But anyway, like I guess I would say objective morality is pretty much say the something is defined as good or bad independent of anyone else's opinion. So like it's not dependent on the parties that are discussing the matter. Yeah. So I guess maybe that's all I'd say. Because it was just more of a definition.
Aha. I like that definition. When something is good or bad independent of the parties involved. Wandalo, would you describe yourself as one?
Yeah, because I guess maybe if you're familiar with the moral argument, in fact, I think one cannot be a Christian without that espousing objective moral values and duties, because the moral argument usually goes this way, that if objective moral values and duties exist, then God exists. Then now we can show very easily that objective moral values and duties exist, therefore God exists. So I think when one is a Christian, which I am, then they subscribe to objective moral values and duties. Yeah.
Wandalo, some more elaboration. What are some examples of objective moral values? As in, what is your evidence that objective moral values and duties exist? How can you convince us that that's the case?
Like I would say, torturing Dorcas for fun is objectively wrong. And then I doubt I'll find anyone who will disagree. Yeah, I guess the only people will disagree. So maybe let me put it this way, and I don't want to get a bit technical, but there is the ontological aspect of moral values. I think this is where people usually confuse. So ontologically, torturing Dorcas for fun is wrong. But now epistemologically, that's where we disagree. And so epistemologically is how we get to know what is right or wrong. So one could have found that out by going to church. One could have found that out by listening to Sam Harris. Another person could have found that out by listening to their grandma, who's maybe even not a Christian, but so those are the epistemological differences. But now ontologically, this torturing, and sorry to use you as an example, but torturing you for fun, now you can be able to learn from both of them, but they can agree without having come from the same worldview. So now we're talking about what is ontologically evil or good. So it's independent of people's opinions, so that even if someone brainwashed all human beings to think torturing you for fun is okay, it would still be wrong. So
Wandalo, one more thing. What is ontological? You know, you're using
ontology.
some jargon.
Oh yeah, so ontology is the nature of something. So it's like what something is. As opposed to, so I use the term epistemology. Epistemology is how we know what we know. So as I was telling you now, so for example, that thing that we need to know, that is the ontological aspect of that thing. So for example, I don't know, could be like calculus, although this is a bad example, I know, but calculus is a thing, or let's say mathematics is a thing. But now the way you get to know about math is different. Could be through the internet, could be through going to class, or it could be through self-teaching yourself through books, whatever the case may be. So people can disagree on the epistemology of knowing the ontology of math. So math is the thing. So ontology is more of the thing that we're talking about. But epistemology is how we get to know the thing. So ontologically, morality is objective, but now how we get to know that is now what differs. Maybe I'm even confusing more. I'm sorry if I am.
Hey, yes, I can categorically say you have confused us. But before I see two people have raised their hands. There was even AK. AK, you had raised your hand. I hope at least you'll say something before you log out, because you said you'd be here for 30 minutes. So before those guys speak, I just wanted to comment, Wadalo. I think what you are making is a circular argument, because you are saying if objective morals exist, then God exists. When we ask you, does God exist? You say, yes, God exists because of objective moral values. And then if objective moral values exist, then God exists. So you're just going round in circles. You are not giving us proof of either of those things. So that is my...
Oh yeah, so like what I was saying, for example, torturing Dorcas for fun is objectively wrong. And which shows that every human being is objectively required to treat you well. They can choose not to, but that's because they're suppressing that truth. It's not because they actually think harming you is okay. So, and that's why there's a difference between suppressing what is true. So for example, let me give an example. I think every human being knows they should live healthy. But you'll find people who are very unhealthy. It's not because they think being unhealthy is okay, but it's because they are suppressing the truth that them being unhealthy is not okay, and one day they're going to pay for it. So that's suppressing the truth. So like, for example, Romans 1 talks about suppressing the truth of God in unrighteousness. So, but now if I give maybe an example of healthy eating, maybe healthy exercising, people know what they should do. It's not even at what they can, but they'd rather not, because suppressing truth is easier than acclimatizing to truth. So like, that's why you'd hear Christians preaching. Yeah, so I think maybe you could understand that. So for example, you can find an alcoholic. It's not because they think being an alcoholic is so cool and the way to go, and they'd probably even teach their kid to be an alcoholic. No, but they're suppressing the truth. And of course, there could be other issues, psychological, emotional. But the truth is, the alcoholic doesn't think it's so awesome and good to be an alcoholic, but they're suppressing truth. So that's why we should distinguish between epistemology and ontology. So what is good is known. Whether someone wants to assent to that truth is another different story.
Now, okay, thank you, Wandalo. I think where you have lost us is on your first premise. You see, when you are making a philosophical argument, if it is correctly done, your conclusion should be correct if your premises are correct. But I disagree with one of your premises, which is that objective moral values exist. You are claiming, using that example of torturing me, that we all know.
And for fun, torturing you for fun.
Okay.
I think I added that.
So,
yeah.
Torturing me for fun. That's one example. That's one example where perhaps we have some universal acceptance of the issue, but there are other instances where I believe it isn't that black and white. That idea of objective moral values is debatable, but let's hear from others. Let's hear from others, Wandalo. Thank you. We'll get back to you shortly. In fact, now that you're here, we will skip to the third subtopic. We'll skip evolution, morality and evolution, and we'll go to Christianity and divine command theory. We will examine whether Christianity espouses objective morality. We will look into that. So we'll hear from you then. Meanwhile, I see Stano's hand is up. I see Morioki's hand is up. AKA, Ebu Inue Yomkono, I saw that your hand was up previously. As you do, let's go to Morioki.
Okay, thanks, Doctor. Just a comment. This thing he's talking about for fun, if it's BDSM, it will be right to do. It will be okay. If you're doing a BDSM, then it's right to torture you for fun. It will be the right thing to do. Thanks.
There you go. That's a perfect example of how you cannot make such absolute statements. Yeah, in BDSM it's quite permissible. Aki Wandalo umeongea. This is now not becoming
okay. Let me yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You'll respond. You'll respond to it.
Dorcas.
Yes.
I have just another one question for Wandalo, so you can answer the two questions for Muriuki and mine. Mine is just torturing Dorcas for fun is immoral. That is what you claim. What if I'm torturing Dorcas or I'm oppressing Dorcas for my own gain? For example, like what we find in the storybook of Bible and other mythical storybook of Quran, where they torture the other tribe to get some benefit from them and to enslave them. Was that part of the moral? Because it was not for fun, it was for their own benefit.
Oh, so I guess if you're talking about the Canaanites, they were offering child sacrifices.
No, I'm not just referring to that. I'm just asking.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm just asking, when I oppress somebody right now for my own gain, will that be right? Because when I'm oppressing somebody for fun is wrong. What about when I'm oppressing somebody not for fun but for my own benefit? That is my question. It's only that I was trying to refer to Quran and the Bible.
Oh, okay. So I guess there's much to the moral argument, but God himself is the standard of good. and he said that the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as yourself.
Wandaro, sorry, I'm not using the word God here. We are talking about torturing Dorcas for fun is tomorrow. I asked the question, what if I torture Dorcas for my own benefit? Will that be wrong?
So like since I'm coming from the standpoint of morality is objective because the Christian God exists, the Christian God has said that you should love your neighbor as yourself. So anything that is against the standard who is God is wrong and evil. So I was being consistent. But I would add and say maybe just to help you understand the response, since from your perspective, life has to be ultimately meaningless because there's no afterlife and the universe was not intending for you. There is no good or evil about your harming her for your benefit. Everything, DNA just is and we dance to its music. If your position is true. In fact, there's someone who actually said that DNA just is and we dance to its music.
You have not answered my question, so you can
try
to answer that part of Morioki now.
Okay, all right, it's okay.
Now, so again, another problem I have seen with your argument that if God exists, if objective moral values exist, then God exists, or I believe in objective moral values because God exists. As I said, it's a circular argument. Also, that assumption that God exists, that is where the rubber meets the road. You have not been able, you as believers, to provide evidence that God exists. So your conclusion is resting on a faulty foundation, Now, please hold on, Wandalo. We are going to ask you even more questions in the next subtopic. But let's hear from, before AKA speaks, Stano, did you tell us what your definition of objective morality is and where you stand in that camp? Are you one or not?
Okay, about the morality, for me, I rely on our modern definition, which we have created and we have find it working. The intention to reduce harm. That is my definition that I stick on. Intention to reduce harm. So if something is reducing harm, that is morally right according to our modern society. And that is how we can be able to survive. So about whether the morality is subjective or objective, whether morality is objective, for me, I will say no. Based on this, if you find yourself in a certain situation, for example, we may say about the lies. If we say to lie is wrong, and then you find a killer coming to your house, asking where is your brother, with the intention to kill your brother, will you tell that person, my brother is in a certain room? He will definitely lie. Is that lie immoral or moral? It will become moral depending on the situation. But in another situation, it will become immoral. So that means if morality depends with the situation, it means it's not objective, but it's subjective. It will depend with the decision your brain will make at a certain moment, or the decision a certain group of people will make in a certain moment or in a certain place, depend on the circumstances. Yeah, that is what I can describe about the moral by saying it's not objective, but subjective, because every situation we need our brain to evaluate to see which direction should we go with. But for objective, should be only one way. Whether when a killer comes, you are not supposed to lie. You are supposed to say, yeah, it's there. So you can go ahead and kill him. That is how the objective can be. But because it's subjective, it can depend with our brain. We evaluate, we use logic, and to see how we can do it. And even for those who believe in God, still subjective. If God is the one who owns the morality or don't give the morality or created the morality, it means morality is still subjective because it comes from God's might. That is also a subjective. So I don't think where we can be able to say morality is objective in any way. Thank you.
Aha. Aha. Very well said, Stano. He even began with a definition of morality, although I feel like that definition of morality is more accurate for secular morality. I think secular morality is best defined that way, or rather secular humanism, because it's based on that, on reducing harm. But generally speaking, morality is understood as the process of defining or determining, the process of determining what is right or wrong. That is the dictionary definition of morality. But you put it very well in terms of why you are not a moral objectivist. And you even touched a bit on Christianity. We will come to it shortly, before Wandalo threatens to log out. But we have to hear all the others that have raised their hands. AKA, go ahead.
Let him answer me before he goes. My question, let him answer it if he wants to leave. On video.
Now, that one, can he post on the chat? Because Aki, he has overtalked. He has really overtalked on that one. Let him post on the chat. AKA, let's hear from you.
I kept my hand up because you insisted that I should keep it up, but really I wanted to sort of correct Ricky, and Stano has just given a whole explanation on how morality is subjective at its core, because the example he gave, I think that was actually nice, that if someone is looking to harm another person and the only way to protect that person is to do something which will be considered immoral in a different light, you will sort of make an exception for that situation. So if you essentially lie, you've done something immoral, and that in itself is evidence of how subjective this thing is. So I'm curious to hear how some people might argue that there is really an objective lens to this. But for me, and even just looking around at how the society functions, different cultures, different groups and all that, there's things people do that you wouldn't do. There's situations where you sort of do things differently and all that. So all in all, it comes down to it being a subjective thing. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you, AKA. At least umekohoa. At least we've heard from you tonight, and we look forward to hearing more if you will hang around. Next is Azrael. Ampa, welcome. By the way, we are answering the question, what is the definition of objective morality? And are you an objective, I mean a moral objectivist? Or are you a moral subjectivist? Or neither? There are also the moral nihilists who don't believe in any morals.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I think we've had this conversation before, and I think in the WhatsApp group chat, I've made my opinions on this multiple times about what I feel about morality in general. And so far as I'm concerned, moral objectivity is the belief that there's a sort of universal standards of morality, where it's like the standard of morality is universal. That is, they are set in place and they are like one. one set of standards for every human being, every culture, every society. That's what I understand by moral objectivity. And I do not believe that morality is objective for multiple reasons. Okay. One of the reasons is that let's take the I know that we'll go into this one is a subtopic under the topic, but I want to mention right now the divine command theory, which by God, okay, and that everything God says so is moral and good. However, there's this conundrum that appears, okay, when you go by that idea or that belief that God set the rules, and that everything He says is true. Because for one, when you say God, which God are you talking about? Are you talking about the Christian God, the Muslim God, the any of the Hindu gods, the Shinto gods? Which one? The Akan gods, the gods that's Odin, Thor, Shiva. Which one? Right? Because each culture, each of these gods have their own standards that they set for their followers, right? That they set for their believers. So even if you go by the divine command theory, whereby like God is a principle, right? There are multiple gods. Each culture has its own gods. Okay. Meaning that if each culture has its own god, and if each deity has its own set of standards for morality, which may differ from one to another, it still makes morality in itself still subjective, because each god has its own moral principles and rules subjective to their power or their authority imposed upon their followers. Right? That is one angle or one reason why I believe that morality is subjective. Even if the gods are true, it still makes morality subjective. And that's with that's my explanation, right? Then the other one is that the cultural relativity, in that each culture has its own diverse norms, do's and don'ts, right? And these do's and don'ts, they vary across geographical locations. For example, one thing that has been debated over here is my culture, the Akan ethnic groups, right? A certain clan called the Asuna, who actually practice incest to a degree. That is a avuncular incest. It is allowed, right? It is normal and it is okay. It is even legal over here. However, if you go to another culture, right, say the Adriana, which is another tribe within the same Akan ethnic group, they are totally against incest in all of its forms. Doesn't matter whether it's cousin, whether the cousins are 4 or 5 or 10 generations apart, or uncle, niece, whatever. It's just not allowed. Totally not allowed. So even within the same ethnic groups, there are these two tribes which actually have different moral principles or different moral codes that they live by. Okay, so much less to compare different ethnicities, like say the Akans and let's say the Gonjas, the Northerners. We are very, very different. So each difference to morality would differ across geographical lines, across social lines, across cultural lines. We are totally different from on that front. That's why, in my view, the bit that morality is objective. It's something that only the naive and, sorry to say, the stupid believe in. That's my opinion on the matter. So I'll end here for now.
Aha. So Azrael has spoken about religious differences in morality. He has preempted the next subtopic. And he has also talked about cultural differences, which show that morality cannot be objective. Thank you, Azrael. Next, we have Ndeve. Karibu.
Thank you, Dorcas. So I'm going to try to avoid the words because I I get myself mixed up with the words, objective and subjective, because they are. You will understand why I'm just going to give an example instead of saying whether I'm on objective or subjective. Let's take a situation. Somebody actually touched on it and left it, did not go on with it. You are a moral person and you don't believe in stealing. You don't believe in lying. And let me just use the one of stealing, because we know that lies, that's neither here nor there. Let's take the one of stealing. You are starving. I'm almost going to use Les Miserables. If somebody has read that French or watched that movie, Les Miserables, you are starving or your child is starving. And we know how we feel when we are hungry. And you steal to save yourself, just to save your life. You steal, but you are a moral person, but you have stolen to save your life. So, is morality, have you been subjective or objective? The hunger, I think the hunger subjected you to being immoral. So I think that while we agree on the universality of some principles of morality, without even going to religion, we know what is wrong and we know what is right. But some situation subjects you to doing something. So are you a moral objective or are you moral subjective? It's a bit, yeah. That's why I stayed away from words of objectivity and subjectivity until I understand how these two words work with morality. Thank you.
Aha. So Ndeve has given us that scenario of the person who steals because they have a child who is starving. I think I can even resolve your dilemma for you, because you're like, you don't want to use those words, objective and subjective,
Before that,
yes.
Dorcas, I have seen the similar behavior, or it's a repetition from Wandaro. You have just posted a verse and he left. A Bible verse. So I was answering somebody who is not here.
Oh my God, he's so predictable. He's so predictable. He can never finish 30 minutes in this meeting. In these meetings, when the heat increases, he gets out of the kitchen.
I hope he did not take God. I hope he didn't take God with him, that we still can have God to hear our dilemma.
Yeah, this God of theirs just needs a mere human being like Wandalo to hold brief for him. Yeah, so thank you for letting us, Stano. Yes, I was commenting about that situation that Ndeve presented. If we are assessing whether this act of stealing in order to feed your starving child is right or wrong, if you go by the assumption that it is wrong because of certain standard values, like you should never steal. If you believe that everybody should adhere to that rule of never stealing, then you would certainly be a moral objectivist in that case. If you judge it as wrong because you have referred to that rule, that external rule, that immutable rule, then you are a moral objectivist. But if you think it is okay, it is moral, it is permissible to steal in order to feed your starving child, then you are a moral subjectivist. Now, let's proceed to the next subtopic. I'll give my contribution as we think about this next question. The next question is on Christianity and the divine command theory. Do we think that Christians or the divine command theory in general, whether you are an African traditional religious follower, whether you are a Muslim or a Hindu, or whatever you are, do we think that those moral systems are objective? Do we think Christianity is objective? Right, as we think about it, if you have an answer already, you can be raising your hand as I make my contribution. So I'll begin with the definition of objective morality, which I had written down. It's kind of similar to what Wandalo had said and what Azrael mentioned as well. Objective morality is a philosophical perspective in which one believes that right or wrong exist regardless of the circumstance or personal experience or agent, individual, society, whatever, regardless of the entity involved or the circumstance, somebody adheres to the belief that something is right or wrong. That is what I had written down, objective morality. And why do people aspire to have more objective morality? Why is it something that Christians cling to? Because they assume that if you have objective morality, then your actions are likely to be predictable. It's not dependent on the individual. You know, you keep hearing somebody asking you, you are an atheist. Now that you're an atheist, what stops you from killing people? And I mean, how do you decide your morals? You can just decide to siphon funds from your workplace because there's nobody to tell you what is right or wrong. So there's that assumption, which I think is erroneous, that just because you don't believe in a God, that you don't have any values. And they insist that it has to be objective, but that is not necessarily the case. Now, as you can probably deduce from what I mentioned, I lean strongly towards objective subjectivism. However, I do acknowledge that there are certain universal principles. I think I kind of hold Sam Harris's perspective. If you've listened to Sam Harris's The Moral Landscape, he says that there is a moral spectrum. There are extremes in which there is absolutism, where there are certain rules that have to be followed always without fail. And then there is relativism, excessive relativism, or agent relativism, where any person can just decide on their own that they're going to do what they want. They don't adhere to any moral principles and they can't be held to account. So they're both extremes. And he says that morality actually rests somewhere in the middle. And this is also the perspective I hold. I think we have a bit of moral objectivism and a bit of moral subjectivism in the world. The objectivism is evident in the idea that certain moral principles appear to be universal. Certain moral principles, now like that one of murder or torturing somebody for fun, save for the BDSM situation, but there are generally certain principles that are common across cultures. I think that points somehow to some universal standard of morality. Then there's also the aspect of what I would call, I wrote this down. Now I've lost my train of thought. Where is it? Okay, I've seen it. There's also the aspect of moral progress, in that there are things that we look at in our past which we despise currently. For instance, the concept of slavery. Back in the day, it was acceptable. Slavery was acceptable, and it was even endorsed in many of the holy texts that we have today. But now, almost most cultures think that slavery is immoral. Yes, it still takes place, but they do it undercover. They don't do it so openly because it is morally, it's perceived as morally wrong. So that shows me that there is some sort of universality. Yeah. Now that example I have given illustrates the opposite point as well. It also makes a case for moral relativity across time. It shows you that it seems like we have evolved. So what was moral during maybe the caveman days it no longer became moral during the Bronze Age, and then it stopped being moral now in the information age completely. So that also shows you that morality changes. So the example I've given of slavery is an indication. It can be used for either case, for universal moral values that exist at this present moment, and it can also be used as an illustration that morality is subjective across time. So there's that aspect. Then there's also the idea of quarreling among people. You find that when people have an argument about a moral issue, a morally conflicting issue, take the example of when President Ruto decided that there would be the military that was released to quell the unrest following the Gen Z protests. There were some people who supported the use of the military, while there were others that did not. But we could still see that both of them were referring to some sort of standard, even if they didn't agree on it, there was some sort of external standard that they were alluding to. So there's that. But I also agree with the rest of you who have given those other examples on subjectivity. So I think they're both sides of the coin. This coin has two sides that we ought to acknowledge, but I lean strongly towards the subjective side. I think moral situations should be judged based on context and based on the circumstances involved. Nonetheless, I do acknowledge that there are certain universal principles that we hold as human beings. Now, next question, I had already asked it. Christianity and the divine command theory. Do we think it is morally objective? Do we think Christianity and the divine command theory is morally objective. Wandalo had tried to show that. Yes, I see Morioki's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Because by divine you mean God, eh?
Yes, the divine command theory is now it's the assumption that there's a God who is telling you, or there's a divine being who is telling you what is right or wrong. It goes beyond Christianity. That's why we use it.
You know, the God in the Bible, he's so brutal and merciless. So it will be hard even for him to offer commands. It will be difficult to say because he himself appears to be so merciless in the Bible. So him giving commands is a bit tricky. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Okay, according to Morioki, you cannot give commands, moral commands, when you engage in moral acts. Let's hear from David.
You have seen what about the divine command theory?
The divine command theory, in a sentence, is the theory that what is right or wrong, that your morals are coming from a divine being. So it can be the Christian God, it can be the ancestral spirits, whoever, but they are the ones who are telling you what to do, what is right or wrong. Yeah. So the question I'm asking is, do we think it is morally objective? Do we think Christianity is morally objective, or any other religion? Any other religion's morality, do we think that it is objective? So, Deve, please go ahead.
Yes. So any command or any law that will come to me from out there or from another source has to be able to manage the situations that I find myself in that will require I make a decision, a moral decision. So if somebody is holding up a machete, a panga on me, and I must tell, and I tell a lie to save my life, or I steal to save my child's life, then the God I who gave me the moral law has to be at hand to help me make that decision. But thank goodness I do not have to rely on another source. So in that case, my morality will be objective. It will come from me. It will not be subjected to a God in my moral decision. So I will make my decision and go with the panga or go with whatever will happen. I will be the one who has made that decision. Therefore, a subjective or a morality that comes from even a divine being, if that being is not there to help you decide what to do in a moral dilemma, you are still on your own. You still are the one that's going to make that decision. That divine has better appear and help you. But if it doesn't, you're the one that is therefore you are being objective. Those words again. Anyway, that is my opinion on that, on that other source.
Okay. Therefore, never you are being subjective in that context where you have to decide on your own whether to leave the panga or not. There you are being subjective. So yes, I hear you on the fact that God is never really present to guide moral decisions. He isn't there. It's actually your own mind that you depend on. Next is Azrael.
So why are you calling it subjective? I'm not being subjected to that morality by anybody.
I'm calling it subjective because it is not following that external source. It's following my own judgment. So if you follow your own judgment, that is subjective.
It is objective.
No, it's subjective.
No,
it becomes objective when it's coming from outside and it's never changing. You see, if right or wrong exists regardless of the circumstances of the person, then that is objective. So if right and wrong exist regardless of the circumstances, that is objective. But if right and wrong exist, yes, is determined by the individual, by the circumstances, that is subjective morality.
That is subjective. Yeah. Okay, now I get it. Okay, yes. Okay.
Fantastic. Great. Azrael, you're next.
Okay. First of all, I want to address an issue here, a philosophical question that I'm putting out there, so that we can address this divine command theory thing. Supposing that you are in a society, okay, and that society allows for people to just take whatever they want from whoever they want, right? So the society operates on the strongest shall rule type of morality, right? In that sense, okay, nothing is banned, nothing is deemed, or let's say there are no codes, no written laws or even oral laws that ban murder or theft or rape. Can you therefore say that if somebody a man forces himself on a woman, can you call that act of rape immoral? Should somebody murder another person, right? Because in this society that I'm talking about, murder, it is not denied, it is not banned, it is not considered immoral. Can you then say that murdering somebody in that society is immoral? So I want to get the definition of what we term morality and what we term immorality as before we move forward. Okay. So like Doctor, if you can clarify that for us from before I move on, what is morality and what is immorality?
So Azrael is asking us a question using that context. He's saying that imagine a society where there are no laws about murder, about rape, etc. How would we determine what is moral? Please paraphrase. I don't know whether I got your question.
Okay. When Ndebe was speaking, she spoke about how I know. I think was it you or Ndebe, but I forgot who said it. But somebody mentioned the word immoral as they were speaking. Then it got me thinking about what if morality is a set of rules or standard guiding the behavior and actions of people. Then what? And if a society does not ban murder or does not consider murder or rape immoral, then what in that sense is immorality at all? But if it can be allowed, right, then won't that action be considered within the realms of morality? That's my question. What exactly is morality and what exactly is immorality? How do we distinguish between the two? Is what I'm asking.
Okay, if somebody has understood Azrael, please answer as you give your response on Christianity and divine command. Yes.
If I understand Azrael, the thing is that in universal morality, the accepted norms, it is wrong. No matter what your culture is, it is wrong. Okay? What is wrong is wrong. What is accepted as objective morality, it is wrong, it is wrong, it is wrong. But we have our cultural practices, and then we also have situations that we find ourselves in. That is the morass. Is a morass or enigma? To me, that is how I understand Azrael's situation. So we have the cultural practices and also the situations that we might find ourselves in. And on the other hand, there is what is objectively, universally accepted as this is morality. Because as we know in life, that's never
Okay, so
straightforward.
so in David, I want to make this sure. Suppose that in a society where like let's say every month, every month they organize a ritual sacrifice to their gods or whatever, or for whatever reason, right? They kill a certain number of people for whatever reason. It may be to their gods, maybe to certain, let's say there's a shortage of resources and they have to remove certain people so that the remaining can suffice on the available resources. Okay, let's say that they have to kill certain number of people every month. Okay, and for some reason somebody saves the current month's people that they are going to kill. So we are going to kill these 3 people. Then somebody somehow sneaks around, then prevent these 3 people from being killed, right? Helps them escape. Then that action of saving those 3 people can be considered immoral in that society because the person has done something which goes against the laws of the land. Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that in that place, it would be considered immoral. That action of saving those 3 people, it would be considered immoral. But universally, we know that because it would have harmed those people, we know universally, he did the moral thing.
All right. Okay.
Aha.
Nice.
That is Deve's perspective. Thank you. Let's continue answering Azrael's question.
Yeah, Docas, hold on. I want to also bring up something. When oh, he's gone. When he was talking, who was he? The one with the SAS-K username. He mentioned that morality.
That was Tano.
That was Tano. Okay, I think he's using a different account
still
now.
here.
Oh, okay. Tano, you mentioned morality and some kind of something that has to do with reducing human suffering. Right, reducing human suffering. So in that sense, right, the term reducing human suffering in itself is a very subjective phrase, right? Because what exactly is suffering? Suffering would differ per person, or what may be considered or be factored into the definition of suffering will be different depending on each individual's definition of what it is, and also be different per each situation. So it is also situational. If it is therefore situational and also subject to individual opinion or viewpoints, then I cannot therefore believe that morality, even with the divine command theory, as there are multiple gods, that morality in itself can be objectively true. Then another point of view is that, okay, if God makes rules, makes do's and don'ts, give his 10 commandments for humanity to follow, but humans have also on their own made their own rules or live by their own set of standards, then there are 2 standards over here. There's one from the human perspective, then there's another one from the God perspective. So God has his own perspective that he wants humanity to follow, The humans also have their own rules and their own code that they're also living by. So even with the divine command theory, although God may give his commands, that doesn't necessarily mean that humans will also agree to that or agree to live by them. I mean, if you read the Bible or the Quran or the whatever holy book out there, the gods have their own rules, and the people just keep breaking them or basically disagreeing with the gods over and over and over again. So even the divine command theory is in itself is faulty. That is my point now. Okay. For now, that's what I have to say on that.
Okay. You have given your perspective on the divine command theory, but also you have posed that question about the ritual sacrifices that happen in a certain village, and then somebody somewhere decides to save a life. How do we judge that act? Do we believe it is moral or immoral? And if so, then does that mean we are moral objectivists or subjectivists? Stano?
I think I have a lot to say, so you may remind me about the question. You ask whether the religions they are moral, whether it's objective.
Yes, that's the main question.
Okay. But I may give a remark about the Israel, about saving life. You may find somebody is killing people, so you decide to kill that person to reduce harm. So he could cause more harm, but because you have killed him, you have only caused little harm than the damage that he could cause. So that is how we can reduce harm. Harm can also be mental. So in any situation or in any area, you look a way that you can be able to minimize harm. If it's about the physical, you know how you can reduce harm. If it's about the loss or stealing, you know you come up with a strategy that will reduce harm or will reduce losses. So in every situation, you try to reduce losses or to reduce harm in a certain area. So it's not just by you cannot say the harm it depend with the it vary from one person to another. Harm is equal to everybody. We all know what the harm it is, so we cannot say what I can term it as harm for me is not what you can term it as harm for you. For that, I don't see making any sense. So about whether religious people their moral is objective, for me, I will say a big no. Religious people, Christianity, Muslim, are not, their moral is not objective based on this. Let's assume their moral come from God. Let's assume that you are given moral by God himself directly. That will not be objective, will be subjective, because God is the one who created those morals, value, and gave those morals to them. That means it's a subjective moral. Again, let's now remove the one about the God, about deity. Whatever they believe in is still subjective because they don't follow it to the letter. For example, in Christianity, they no longer enslave people. And initially, it was not wrong for Christian to enslave another person. But nowadays, in modern, because the moral keep changing, Christian, they find it immoral to enslave other people. But initially, they could enslave. That means their moral is still subjective. They keep changing with how our mind or our human being human brains are developing with a new idea of moral value or creating a new moral value, among other things. So whatever you find, to know whether the Christian are subjective or objective, you may try to ask him a certain question, not through his scripture or her scripture, but in opposite scripture, by trying to use reverse psychology. You will find that person will judge according to our modern society rules. But if you try to ask him about his own scripture, he will still answer with the modern society understanding of morality, but try to twist by saying those scriptures were metaphoric. That means he agree the moral keep changing. He don't agree with it, the moral standard or the scripture that he believed in. That is why he is trying to twist to make it metaphoric. So for me, all believers, their moral are just subjective. Even if we give the allowance by saying, here is God and is giving them, and we hear God telling them what to do, that will still remain to be subjective, because it's coming from the mind of that God, if the God is present there. Thank you.
Very well said. I just wanted to comment on something you said there, Stano, about Azrael's situation, his thought experiment. I think, given the fact that you have a universal principle, which is minimizing harm, reducing suffering in human beings, that in and of itself is objective. So you possess an element of moral objectivity in you, in as much as you acknowledge that there is nuance. You must consider the circumstances. Sometimes it is okay to lie, sometimes it's not okay to lie, but you still have a certain universal principle, which is to reduce human suffering. And that makes you partly objective, morally objective. I think that is my analysis of your perspective. Morioki, you're next.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. I think also it's good to remember that God is man-made. I think that's very important. God is man-made. So let's not talk like God is something up in the sky. So man-made God. And also, I want to tell Nani, Azrael, I think immoral means causing destruction to property or to life. That's immorality. And I think even if you think carefully, veganism is in the house. I'm hearing a lot of veganism, but you guys cannot see it, but there's veganism here. So immoral means destruction or harm to a person or property. Then being moral is bringing comfort or being productive in life. That's morals. Being productive.
Morogi.
Yeah.
Okay, so if let's say supposing that I am attacked, right? And in my in defense of my life and my person, I shoot my attacker in the head. I've destroyed his life, I've killed him. Is that immoral?
That's self-defense, Israel. Eh? That's self-defense. You had no choice. That's
self-defense. But is it immoral?
No, that time no. So self-defense.
Therefore, then the murder in itself cannot be objectively wrong. It will be subjective depending on the situation. So it will be situational or relative type of thing.
Yeah, so okay, like I said earlier, it depends again. This topic has there's a lot of the situation. What were you in? What was happening at the moment? It depends on the situation also. This discussion. Like now you say if a thug comes to your house and you kill the thug, there you had no choice but to kill him. And that shouldn't be immoral. But if you go killing people, like on a killing spree, you go in the town and start killing people with a gun, just like that. These guys who go on shooting sprees. That's immoral. Because they have a choice and they go killing people. That's immoral. But for a criminal attacking you in your house, that's not immoral. It's self-defense. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I also have a question. What about what if I remove all my clothes, I started walking naked? Will that be moral?
Dorcas, if I was thinking, if you go to
Yes.
a naked beach and you wear clothes in a naked beach, I think you'll be judged. But if you walk naked in town, you'll be called immoral. But in a naked beach, if you wear clothes, it won't be a harsh judgment. But in town, if you're naked, you'll be judged as immoral. So I think, Stano, I think that answers your question. Thanks.
Western, no.
What is immoral? What is immoral about nakedness? Who are you harming?
In town, the streets, it's immoral. In the streets, it's immoral. But in a naked beach, if you wear clothes, I don't think you'll be judged harshly if you wear clothes in a naked beach. But in town, if you're naked, you'll be judged.
Immoral. It's about harm. Who is being harmed by nakedness?
We wear clothes, we'll be distracted because we wear clothes.
Murioki, do you know when Africans started wearing, particularly in the tropics in where we come from? Do you know when we started wearing clothes?
When Wazungus came.
Yeah, people wore just beads. Some people, even women, they go to Turkana. People just wear beads, decorative beads, and they are okay.
But now we have clothes in Neve. Clothes came. Now it's too late. Clothes came and now they're used to clothes. It's too late now.
Muriuki,
we've changed.
Clothes came together with the sin. Those two things, you have to associate those two together. Guilt, being made to feel guilty about your body, and being made to feel guilty that you do not believe in hanging somebody on a tree. You've got to really associate those things to sin, guilt. What exactly is sin?
We have clothes in Devon.
And what is wrong? What is wrong with not wearing? Somebody who goes to a nudist. I don't go to a nudist beach or camps, but somebody told me, just it made so clear to me that he said, you as an African, you should be the last person to feel shy about going to a nudist. You guys did not wear clothes, which is true. We didn't wear clothes. So what? How did we get hung up? How did we get so hung up on clothes?
It's the human mind, Debe. It's all in the mind now. The mind is used to clothes. So if you see nakedness,
throw your idea about clothes and immorality where you threw God. They belong together. Where you threw Jesus.
I wonder, David, that question is tricky. I think it's a tricky question because of this angle. I once discussed it with a philosopher, and they said they don't support walking naked in the street, like completely naked. We're not talking here about wearing scanty clothes, no, like having nothing, exposing your genitals. The person gave me the example of children. He said it would be a problem for the children, that the children are going to see someone's genitals. Yeah, I don't know whether you still would be okay with that. Say you had a child, maybe a toddler or somebody who's really young, and they're looking at somebody's genitals. I don't know whether you would be very comfortable with that idea. Yeah, it's a tricky question because when we use the lens of secular humanism, which is reducing harm, I think it doesn't apply. Like, I don't see harm being done in that context. But now when that person brought in the issue of kids, I didn't know what to say. Morioki, you have something to add?
Look, it's not the kids, it's adults. It's not the kids, it's for the adults not to see. Because adults are mature people, not even the kids, it's the adults who are in danger, the grown-ups. Thanks.
A danger of what? What would happen? Like a
See
person.
our hands, our faces, our mouths, our legs, they see our anatomy all the time. It's only that we have designated genitals as something else. It's just anatomy. They would, you know, that we
It's
see
a private part. It's kind of like this endeavor. If you are taking a piss in the toilet, and then a child came in and walked in. Let's say it's those toilets that don't have a seat where you have to squat, so everything is exposed, and then somebody walks in and they see you. Wouldn't you be bothered by that? I think we would. It's just a social convention. Now here is where I acknowledge the fact that some things which we call moral or immoral can just become a social convention that people agree on. It's not that they have a concrete effect on our well-being, they don't cause harm per se or suffering. But I think you would object if you were in a toilet and somebody just walked in and saw your private parts, you would have an issue.
Yeah, I think there was a sociology book I was reading, I think in 2011, and I met a part that say nothing wrong, nothing right. So right or wrong thing depend on the society, what they have agreed on. And they give example. They say, for example, they say going naked is wrong, not wrong, or wearing clothes is not wrong. But it depends with the society what you have agreed and what your mindset is being. So if your mindset is walking naked is not wrong, we don't go freely. Even children will not see anything bad when they see adult naked, fully naked. And if we decide the way we have decided to wear clothes, if you go naked, the people will see something wrong. So because we have not yet set our mind in that way. So nothing wrong, nothing right about wearing. It depends with how our mind are modified through the society or through our culture. Just the way David have seen in the past, we Africans, we were almost naked.
Okay. Yes, that one of nudity is contextual. Now, we proceed to the next question. As you think about it, I'll give my response to that one on Christianity and the divine command theory. So the next question is the link between morality and evolution. What is the link between morality and evolution? And does that make it objective or subjective? Do we think there's any relationship between evolution and morality? And does that make morality objective or subjective? Now, let me respond to Azrael's question and then give my contribution on divine command theory. So in Azrael's case, I would still, if you asked me whether that act was moral or immoral, and the context we are considering is someone who decides to save the life of a potential victim of human sacrifice. They decide, you know what, I am not going to allow the villagers to sacrifice this person. I'm going to save their life. I'm going to hide them. So if you ask me, is that act moral or immoral? I would say it's moral. And what would that mean in terms of objective morality or subjective morality? It would mean here in this context that I am behaving like a moral objectivist because I'm using a certain universal standard, which is advancing human well-being or reducing. Let's go with the negative definition. I prefer the negative definition rather than the positive one of well-being. I prefer reducing harm because that's more concrete. If our principle is that we want to reduce harm, caused to humans, that means it's a universal principle that doesn't consider the culture. Because in this case, the culture is that there are certain times where you cause harm, such atrocious harm, like sacrificing an individual, taking away their lives to appease the gods. In that context, I would apply that universal principle on that situation and say the person who saved this other's life is acting morally, because I'm using a universal or an objective moral principle, which is reducing harm. But if I am a moral relativist and I believe that all morals depend on the culture, I have no grounds to judge that village as immoral. I have no grounds to say that what they have done is wrong, because according to their culture, it is moral. That is why I was very clear in the beginning that we have to draw the line. We have to accept that there are some aspects where we will act like moral objectivists. And then there are times when we act as moral subjectivists. So as a secular humanist, someone who believes in reducing human harm or advancing human well-being, that's a universal principle that may sometimes clash with certain cultures. And that's why I was also clear that it is important to define morality according to the dictionary. Not going with the secular humanism version. According to the dictionary, morality is how you determine what is right or wrong. So how you determine it could be based on objective principles or subjective ones. So that's how I would respond to as well, but I see his hand is up. Please go ahead.
I was going to say that, Dr. that you have every moral right or every ground to stand on to judge these people for wanting to kill another person, even though that society's rules and their regulations allows for the killing of these people. Why? Because I believe that in life, you have to be selfish. I believe that your opinion, regardless of if it stands contrary to the society's norms or another group's beliefs, matter. Okay. I mean, look at history. Look at the history. The reason the world is today because certain people who are powerful have imposed their will.
I think we lost him. I think his internet is down. I see Morioki's hand is up and Stano's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Doctors, by evolution, do you mean now as in evolution, Charles Darwin or what? I want to be clear on that.
Yes. Evolution in terms of Charles Darwin, but also just our history as a species. Where did those morals come from when we look at our history? And does that make it objective or does that make it subjective? That's what I mean.
And
right.
then just what you said about this community that kills people, I'm sure the people being killed don't want to be killed. I'm positive. The people who have been sacrificed by a community won't want to be sacrificed. So still, based on that, it will be immoral for me. And then based on evolution, I think once upon a time, we had no conscience.
Wait, Morioki, for evolution, if you're answering that question, please wait, because I was still making my contribution.
Okay.
For evolution, you just wait. Stano, was your hand up for evolution or was it in response to what we discussed with Azrael?
Madewi, I'm back.
Oh, he's here. Okay, let's allow you to finish. You were talking about history.
No, because I was talking about that. Just because you are a moral relativist doesn't mean that you have no grounds upon to judge another group. Okay. So just as their their morally relative laws and rules and do's and don'ts are valid, so are yours. Okay. So in this world, the loudest people, the ones who have the most power, or the ones who have the authority, or let's say the effective ability to put their opinions forward, are the ones who rule. So if you believe that sacrificing people ritually for whatever reason is bad, and some people out there are doing exactly that, and they are doing that because their rules and their regulations or their laws permit it, it doesn't mean that you must allow them. If you believe that that action is wrong, impose your will upon them, impose your opinion upon them, talk to them, try to force them if you can, or if you have if you have the ability to do so, to force them to stop those practices. That is how slavery was stopped. Certain people did not want it to stop. They wanted to continue practicing it because, well, that was their standard, that was their morality. It was good. They have a slave caste, but certain people outside and certain people in also other parts of the world thought that slavery was wrong, and so they imposed their role upon those people and made slavery illegal. Force them to stop their practices, force them to stop, but even force them to even have a change of moral standards. Okay, so just because you are a moral relativist doesn't mean that you cannot judge another people for their rules and or their standards. What I'm saying may sound like a tyrannical, forcing your opinions on others, but there are certain situations whereby you have to force your opinion on them. You have to force your will on them and make them stop.
Azrael, I think I have no problem with imposing morally superior values on other people.
No,
I have no problem with that.
I won't term it morally superior. I will term it your morality. Doesn't matter if some people think that what you are doing is wrong or not. If you believe that or if you believe that ritual sacrifices are wrong, then they are wrong, and you must impose your will upon them to stop these people from doing it. I don't like using the term moral superiority because I don't know.
Okay.
It sounds a bit arrogant.
Then, Azrael, you have no grounds if you are a relativist, especially a cultural relativist. You have no grounds to impose your morals on them because the relativist by definition believes that things are right or wrong depending on one's culture. So they acknowledge that in this culture it is okay to kill, in this culture it is not okay to kill. They accept it. So if you call yourself a relativist, you cannot impose your values. By definition, you have to acknowledge that that is their morality. If you are a cultural relativist. So that's the reason why I do not go with that definition. I prefer.
I think that's this where you and I differ from. As we are humans, regardless of whatever the content of our morality is, or what our moral codes are, we have different moral codes, different moral principles that we will live by. They may be right or wrong depending on what our perspective is. Okay. Yes, I acknowledge that if these people believe that murder is right in that society, okay, I understand that. In fact, I acknowledge their belief to go around killing wantonly because it is allowed in their society. However, in my society, in my worldview, that act is immoral. Right? That act is immoral. So I understand just like a thief coming to steal your stuff. He knows that that thing that you're having, it is yours, it's not his, but you still take it. That's what I'm saying. I understand that you have your own moral, or this society has its own moral standards, subjective unto itself and different from mine, right? But because I believe that what they are doing is wrong, and therefore my moral principles or my moral standards will not allow me to just sit there and watch them do what they are doing, then I will therefore make them stop by force. That is how come slavery was stopped. Some people believe it was correct, and some people believe that, okay, they understood that these people think that what they are doing is wrong. But we believe that what you are doing, we understand that you believe that what you are doing is correct. And I believe, right, that morality is subjective. Okay, therefore, because I believe in my morality, I will therefore impose my morality on yours because I see what you're doing as wrong.
I disagree. I still hold my position that if you feel somebody else is doing something wrong, then you are making a moral judgment based on different values from them. You are therefore not a relativist.
No, Dorcas, hold on.
You are using external moral values to judge these people, but you're not using their own moral values. So you cannot call yourself a relative. Yes, and that means Dorcas, you cannot call yourself a relativist. You are actually acting like a moral objectivist. You don't want Dorcas, that word. You don't want that word, but that is how you are behaving.
No, not really. There's this thing called awareness. Okay, I'm very much aware that people have different principles that they live by. Kind of like let's say like a psychopath. Okay, psychopath, they don't necessarily feel these emotions that people normally feel. They don't attach themselves to the notions of right and wrong that society implies. They understand that certain actions and certain things are frowned upon, right? They understand that these things is wrong, doing that is wrong, but they also do it because they don't really care. That's what I'm talking about. I understand that certain people have their own principles that they live by. I am also a moralist in that I also understand that these principles that they live by is different from mine, and I acknowledge that. However, what they are doing disgusts me, and therefore I'll make them stop. It's not a matter of me being a moral objective. If I was a moral objective, right, my point of view would be that there is a universal standard that these people are not going along with. However, me being a moral relativist, I understand that they have their own laws and I have my own laws, and I'm simply imposing mine upon them. It's a bit of tyranny, okay, which I view as necessary. Sometimes tyranny is very, very necessary.
You know what? I think let's just agree to disagree on that one because I still see you having certain values. You having certain values by which you're judging those people, by you are saying that what they're doing is harmful, and so you are imposing those external values upon them. And that act of harming someone, it seems to be an immoral act according to you. So I think you can't run away from this fact.
Wasn't that how colonialism worked? I mean, you find a society and you start upsetting their whatever they do, and you decide to impose your religion, your education. I should take that one out of the equation. You impose your your laws and morals upon them, whether they like it or not.
Exactly, Ndevi. That's what I'm talking about.
That's how I understand it. So now we just have to gang up on Tori so she can see it that way.
So the thing is, I think it's a fine line between cultural imperialism and moral imperialism. I think there are certain cultural values that are harmless and they're essential to a community's identity. They should be maintained. But if there are certain cultural behaviors that are harmful, like female genital mutilation, then I see no problem with an external party coming and calling these people to account, requiring them to stop engaging in female genital mutilation in order to engage with them. Maybe you are donors. Maybe they need your money to develop, but you tell them it's on condition that you stop that harmful cultural practice. So I believe it's a two-edged sword. I don't think we should impose every single culture from the outside, no. But if certain cultural practices are harmful, then yeah, we need to push them. Otherwise, how will moral progress ever be made if we keep respecting every single person's culture? We are like, yeah, those people, it's their culture to kill newborn babies that are albinos or twins. It's their culture. Let's respect it. No,
that's why certain elements of tyranny must be applied.
Yes,
don't you agree?
But yes, I agree, but not to the extent. You are making it seem like tyranny. It's a free for all. It's okay. They can do whatever they want. No, specifically for harmful cultural practices, I think there's room for that. Yeah, there's room for that.
But Dorcas, can you imagine any society that has been practicing the killing of twins or the killing of albinos? Can you just imagine how upsetting it is for them when we come and we tell them, no, you can't kill them? Then they will ask you, where will we take them? They can't be among us. Where shall we take them? We always killed them and that was the end of it. So what are we going to do with them? So it is upsetting, but the fact is, it is harmful. It's harming. They are harming them, even if they don't see value in them. They probably know, like the mother of those twins knows that they do not want to have their kids killed, but the culture says that you have to kill. I'm sure the mother of those twins or the mother of that albino would rather have their child, but it is like an atheist, somebody who is a Christian in a village, who is an atheist in a village of Christians. They know that they are atheists, but they dare not. They dare not come out as atheists because you are immersed. You are immersed in similar in thought that is so different from yours. So we have to see it from that perspective and see that therefore it is tyranny that we are imposing on these people to stop killing the twins.
Oh, Ndevi, yes. You have made my day. Because I think, Doctor, I think I've mentioned this thing before. I come from a line of, I'm actually descending from Igbo. That's a Nigerian ethnic group, right? One of my great grandfather was born a twin, and in those days, if you are born a twin, they kill you. So it was actually it was during that time when, I don't know if you have his name, Mary Slessor. She was a Christian missionary who was sent to Igbo land at that time. So she was one who actually saved my grandfather ×4 at that time, and took him and saved him from being killed. So both my grandfathers were saved. All of that. So that's why coming that a certain element of tyranny must be imposed on certain cultural practices. Otherwise, it will keep on going over and over and over again. So thank you for bringing that one up. It's a very personal issue for me and my family.
Yes,
it is quite it's quite prevalent in some parts of East Africa. When people are albino, you're just somebody wants to kill you somewhere, whether for sacrifice. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah. So that concern you make, Ndeve, I think sometimes we have to sacrifice peace and the status quo for the sake of justice or the greater good. You will cause a bit of upheaval, a bit in that society, because now they'll be thinking, where do we take these twins? Where do we take these albinos? But at the end of the day, you are making that society better. There's always some pain that comes before progress in that respect. Now, Stano, was your comment, was your answer about evolution, or was it in response to Azrael? If it is about evolution, please wait.
Okay, mine was about evolution, though I can just add what the
Doctor, is different. I want to respond to what Azrael and Debbie are saying.
Okay. Let's first hear from Stano on just the response to Ndeve and Azrael. Just that response. Keep evolution kidogo. Even Morioki, just wait for Stano. Morioki? Okay. Yes. Okay. Morioki, you will be after Stano. Stano, go ahead.
Okay, I will not comment about evolution. In fact, even I'm not very familiar with it. So what I want just to ask a question. As people answer the question about evolution, they can try to answer this question. Is the question from the Wandaro before he left. He asked, what is standard? By which standard should we judge colonialism was immoral if morality is not objective? That is the question that he asked. So I think I want us to think about that. Then, because that is the common question that we find from these people called religious. By what standard can we judge if the morality is subjective? If what we are doing today is based on subjective, but not objective. Yeah.
Well asked. Thank you for that question. Please, guys, consider your response as you also comment about evolution. Oh, Morioki, you wanted also to respond to Azrael's.
Yeah, for me, I think we should look at those views. Like, if it's a community that kills people and we stop them, that's not tyranny. It's them who are tyrants. If you're stopping people from killing each other in a community, you're a good person. If you're a tyrant, you're a dictator, you're oppressive. So the world is not tyrant there because you're doing the right thing, because they're killing people and you want to stop them. So that's not a tyrant. I think the word is it's not, you're a good person. A tyrant is a bad person. Then also, according to what Stano asked, for me, slavery, apartheid, and colonialism were just wrong. They were wrong. At that time, they appeared right, but the fact is, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, we have a conscience. So they were wrong, always wrong. Even if it's at that time, they were still wrong, but they couldn't see it because we have a conscious things.
Okay. So have you answered the question? What is the standard?
I mean, sorry, let me say that veganism is in the house. Veganism is in the house. Harming people, bringing people to, discomfort to people, taking their rights by force, harming them, that's just wrong. And that's I'm a vegan, harming any living thing. So it was wrong because they harmed people. They used force on people. They changed them by force. So that's just immoral. Thanks.
Morioki,
Morioki.
vegan in the house.
Morioki.
Yeah.
If it was always wrong, does it mean it's objective, not subjective?
Yes, that's objective because you're harming a living thing. You're harming people. You're uncomfortable. They don't say, come colonize me, come enslave me. They fought back. Either they'll submit because they are weak, or they'll fight back. And Africans fought back because it was wrong. That's why we fought back.
Okay. So according to Morioki, that aspect is objective and it's based on reducing harm. I'm trying to turn on my video. Oh, great. There I am. So I still want to respond to divine command theory. I have not given my take on Christianity and whether it is morally objective or morally subjective. So I agree with all of you, of course, that Christianity and divine command theory, anybody who believes in morals given from above, from a higher being, is by definition subjective. So they need to get off their high horse. Why do I say so? Number one is because how do we know which commandments to follow and which ones not to follow? I put it to you, there is no Christian on earth, even no Muslim on earth, who follows everything in their holy text. Everything, every single ordination, edict, or command in the Quran, or every single command in the Bible from beginning to end, they don't exist. Christians especially, at least with the Jews try to be a bit judicious when it comes to following the commandments. There are over 400 commandments in the Old Testament, but don't let them fool you that they are just 10. There were over 400 of them. So Jews try to follow a few here, like unleavened bread, like the women who are menstruating and ritual cleansing. Some of them, the conservative, the Orthodox Jews, by the way, not all Jews. There are some that are liberal who don't follow any.
I had a 613. I was teaching about that, but I have never confirmed it. But I was teaching a 613.
There you go. Yes, there are that many. There are that many. 600 and over 600 laws that have been written in the Old Testament alone. So you're imagining that a human being living in modern society today is trying to live by those rules. There's one that talks about not sharing a seat with a woman who is menstruating. How do you know that this woman is menstruating? You will see me, I'm smiling, I'm wearing tight clothes. You will not know that I'm menstruating. So by definition, you will just be breaking that rule. There are many Jews in the modern society today who break that rule. There's another rule that tells you need to throw a stone at anybody who cross dresses. Do they throw stones? They don't. Then there are other trivial rules in the Bible, like not mixing a goat in its mother's milk when you are cooking, or not wearing mixed fabric, linen and cotton. There are so many trivial rules. Wearing braided hair, tattoos, or jewelry, it's forbidden. There are some laws here and there that forbid them. But there are many Christians today who don't care about those rules. So they are being subjective in that respect. That's number one. They are picking the laws that they find favorable, that are easy and convenient for them, while the other very hard ones, they excuse them are saying that's the Old Testament, that's the Old Covenant, or that one was specifically for the Israelites. Even the 10 Commandments were for the Israelites alone. They were not for the Canaanites or the Levites. They were for the Amalekites. No, they were for the Israelites. So you guys, as Africans, are forcing yourselves onto a foreign culture, the Israeli culture. It was meant, the 10 Commandments were meant for the Israeli people. But the Christians today pick that one and say, okay, we'll follow that one. But these other ones of the goat, in the goat's milk, that one we won't care about it. Or not picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. By the way, you are supposed to be stoned to death if you pick up sticks on the Sabbath. And why do people pick up sticks on the Sabbath? They do it in order to cook, to feed their families. So you're not supposed to feed your family. You're not supposed to cook on the Sabbath, otherwise you will be stoned to death. No Christian to date does that. Even the Jews themselves, they don't do that. So it shows you that they are not following that divine command, or those divine commands, all over 600 of them, judiciously or objectively. They are using their brain to decide which ones are convenient for them. That's one aspect. Then the other aspect is the issue of revelation. Revelation. You see, the way God talks to human beings, according to the believers, is he does it through the holy text, what is written down, and he also does it through the Holy Spirit, if you are a Christian, or through just angels, according to Muslims, and other spiritual beings. You know, he has a way to tell you what he wants you to do, according to them. Yeah, they say that. But you see, this problem of revelation, it leaves it to people's whims. Because I can wake up today and say, God has spoken to me, and he has told me that no woman is supposed to talk in public. It is not supposed to talk, is not supposed to sing, is not supposed to do anything. That's what God has told me. Maybe I didn't read it in the Bible, although the Bible does talk about women sitting in silence at the back of the church. But I can make up whatever rule I want. I can make up a rule that women should not leave their houses. And I can say that it is divine revelation. Who are you to stop me? How can you judge that it is not true or true based on the quote unquote conversation I had with God? You see, that makes it highly subjective. You keep hearing of all these pastors, of all these priests that come up with insane edicts for their members simply because they are claiming that it is the issue of revelation. And then the last aspect, which proves that divine command theory is indeed a myth, that it is not objective, is the fact that we have hundreds of Christian sects. For all the major religions, they have divisions. They have divisions. For the Muslims, it's the Shia and the Sunni, but we also have other animistic Muslim practices, like in South Sudan, they have mystics who are Muslims. They have different sects in that faith. So with Christianity, we have Seventh-day Adventists, we have the Catholics, we have the Protestants, we have all these people who hold very different views on morality. The Catholics used to say that contraceptives are evil. Don't take contraceptives. But then you go to maybe some Pentecostal church somewhere, and according to them, there's no problem with taking contraceptives. So the fact that we have all of these different sects shows you that how they interpret God's commands is very divergent. That's what I had to say on Christianity and divine command. Now, can we answer that one of evolution and proceed to the final question? The question is, how does evolution account for morality, and does that make it objective or subjective? Great. Morioki, go ahead. I don't know, Stanos, whether your hand was still up from previous or whether you had something to say, but Morioki.
Thanks, Dorcas. Once again, veganism is in the house, eh? Veganism is in the house. Okay, but I'd say we have a conscience, which we evolved. A lion or a hyena will never feel bad about killing anything, for sure. But a human being will. But I think in the past, when we were Homo erectus or Homo habilis, I think there was no conscience. Some were killers at that time. We used to kill, and kill. But now we have a conscience. So now we've evolved our conscience. So now that means that conscience has evolved for a reason. So you can choose to use it or not to use it. So now for human beings, it's something that it's there. So I believe we should use it. And that's I'm a vegan. Thanks.
That's Morioki's view. Let's move to Stano. And Morioki, you are trying too hard. You're preaching about veganism here. Anyway, Stano.
Okay. I may act as an advocate here by saying I can also defend plant by saying we are harming plant when we are cutting down trees, when we are eating maize, among other crops. So, and if it's about they are harm, tree are not cannot feel harm like the animals, then we can just try to tell lion not to eat the other animals, but to eat only the plant. But that is not how the lion is modified. The biological is based on meat alone. My biological as a human being is based on meat and the plant. I'm omnivorous. It's not my choice to be omnivorous, but it's the nature that modified me like that. And the other kind of the animal, some they eat both crops and other animals. So that is how we are being modified by the nature, not our will, but what the nature modified us. And the same nature balance the ecosystem. If you are eating animals, the animal you are eating, they multiply more than you who are eating them to balance the ecosystem. So if we decide to stop eating the animals, then ecosystem will be in imbalance, and that will be the danger to our society or to our environment. That is what I can say for the sake of for that of Morioki argument. So about the evolution with the morality. I thought for me, if evolution is the one that resort to morality, then in that perspective, I can just say morality is objective and everything that exists, including me, you, the planet, is objective. That is what I can say if we just claim with evolution came with the morality. But in my case, it's not. Because evolution is just, it resort to us, to living things. And then us, with the conscious, we come up with our own moral, subjective way to know what we will do, what we will not do. And as the time goes by, we keep modifying. Maybe even in our future morality, maybe we will reach in a stage of Morioki by saying, by talking to animal and agree with the animal. We will not kill you, you will not kill us. And we will live maybe in that standard that Morioki want. But for that, I think it's just a dreaming for me. I don't think it will ever reach. But maybe in the future, maybe morality will be extended to Manike. We will be agreeing with the manic how to live. Your part is here, and the manic tell us your part and you as human being is there. So we don't know. So morality keep on changing. So evolution just develop things, modifying us. We change some feature change from our body. We develop some features and some feature end completely. But about morality, we are the one who are coming with our own things, how we want to live. Animals are coming with their own morality, how to live with one another, and which type of group of animal they want to live with, and which they hate or they don't like them. Yeah, that is how I can think about evolution in connection with morality. They are not connected at all. Evolution just resort our brain. Our brain are able, our brain and even the animal's brain are able to reason and to know what is wrong, what is right, and how to protect their own species. Thank you.
That is Tano's view. He doesn't think they are related. Ndeve, you are next.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to say that I think that evolution and morality, or rather the development or the first consciousnesses of morality, go hand in hand. Because, for example, we went on, and as we evolved, we found that it was easier to use a rock to crack something. Then we also found out that that rock could also crack somebody's head, an enemy's head, when they were coming at us. Then I thought that we decided that, okay, this rock, I can kill an animal with it, and I can also fell an enemy with it, but I cannot crack I can't throw it at my child. See, those are things that must have evolved with us. They must have come with us, with our mind, developing that weapon and deciding how to use that weapon. So I think they go together. I've no timelines here, and I have got no study that I can quote. But I think that the usage of any tool definitely did come with the do's and don'ts with that tool, and that was part of our evolution. That is my take. Thank you.
Now, thank you, Ndeve, and all the people who have responded to that question. I'm going to give my take, and then we go to the last question. Please remember, Stano also asked us a question on behalf of Wandalo. He was representing his spirit here. He asked us, what moral standards do you use to judge that colonialism is bad? You as non-believers, as atheists, what moral standard do you use to judge that colonialism is wrong, given that you don't believe in objective moral standards? So, yeah, remember to answer that question as you give your final response. And the final question is on the idea of cultural relativism versus moral universalism. Perhaps he had written it that way, but maybe how I can phrase the question is, what problems do we see with cultural relativism? What are the challenges to live and let live, to respect people's cultures, to say that morality is defined by somebody's culture? What are the problems that we see with that? And does that make a case for moral universalism? I'll repeat the question after I make my contribution on evolution. So, evolution and morality, I do think there's a link. I keep giving this example anytime we talk about morality. I mention the example of monkeys, apes, or animals within that species. You find that a good number of them, even though we are apes, but monkeys, let's say the monkey family, chimpanzees, bonobos, etc., they show some semblance of morality. When you see them interacting with each other, they have a sense of fairness, a sense of altruism, and empathy. In fact, some anthropologists call this the selfless gene or the altruism gene. So they exhibit it. Even dogs, we have dogs that act as guides for blind people because they have that innate sense within them. Then, when you look at children, even young children who have not yet developed speaking skills, they have the ability to make out what is wrong and right. Like if they watch a program, the bad guy, they will shun the bad guy and they will support the good guy. It seems like it's innate within us. You have moral intuition within you. The Christians will say, oh, it is God who planted that moral intuition in you, but we don't have evidence for their invisible friend. What we attribute it to is evolution, that we evolved to be altruistic. Why? Because we are social animals. For us to get along in a group, we need to be altruistic. We need to be moral towards each other. We need to be fair. We need to be kind and empathetic towards each other. That sense of cooperation is actually the reason why the human species has accomplished as much as it has, because it cooperates. And a secret glue to cooperation is morality or altruism specifically. So I think that is the link. That's where it's coming from. We have a moral intuition. Given that we have this moral intuition, then I would say that it is objective. That there are some things you just look at them and they repulse you. Even if nobody told you about it, you just see, like if you see someone being tortured or a baby being raped, that bothers you. Even if no one gave you a lecture on the ethics of it, just intuitively you have it within you because it evolved within us. So it is in that sense objective. That's what I have to say on morality and evolution. So last question, as you also answer ex-Pastor Stano's question. If you atheists, he said, if you atheists don't have objective moral standards or values, how do you judge that colonialism is wrong?
But
so
before that,
Dorcas,
before that, what you have mentioned about rape, do you think there's people who are going to beat other society or to fight the other society and they rape women there? Do you think some of them, they feel it's not okay? Or everybody else feel it's not okay for this our fellow soldier raping the other people? Because for me, I think that you all think it's okay.
The ones doing, or you're asking the ones who are doing the raping, the group?
We got as a group to fight other society. In our mission of fighting and killing them, we decided to rape people. Do you think we still think it's immoral to do that? Or we think it's okay to do that?
I think we know that it is immoral, but we go ahead and do it because we have dehumanized that group. I would liken this to the example of the Nazi soldiers during the Holocaust, when they were required to kill innocent Jews. some of those soldiers, they were spoken to by psychologists after, and they said, I knew it was wrong. You know, Kwanzaa, you look at a child and you just shoot them. I knew it was wrong, but it had been sanctioned by the government. I was just obeying orders. But they had that intuition within them. They just went against it because they dehumanized the other group. Yeah, so I think some things can be legally sanctioned, they're okay, but deep within you, you know it's wrong. Morioki?
Yeah, thanks, Dorcas. I think, like I said earlier, this, if you're bringing harm to any living thing, there's a problem for a human being. You see, I saw once a lion eating a live warthog. A lion eating a live warthog. It was eating the warthog when it was alive, and it can't see that's wrong. It's just doing what a lion does. It's alive and it's eating it. But now for a human being, if you come to, like, you're a colonialist, you come to Africa and find people, you take their culture, you kill them, you even rape them. For a human being, it's wrong. As long as they're human, like you're saying, even the Nazis, as long as they're human, it will be wrong. The keyword there is human. For human being, you can destroy the conscience, but it will come back. As you get older, as you grow older, it comes back to haunt you. See, like a lion wouldn't be haunted, but a human being, as they get older, they get haunted by what they did in their past. That's human. But animals don't have a conscience like us to look back and say and regret. Human beings regret because we are very advanced with a high conscience. So that's why we know right and wrong things.
So, Morioki, have you answered the other question on cultural relativism? What do you foresee as the challenge with cultural relativism?
Oh, I think I would say live and let live if there's no harm. It's like if you're killing twins, that you have to stop. If you're killing people, you have to stop. If it's female genital mutilation, that you have to stop. But if there's no harm being done to anyone, live and let live. Thanks.
Okay, then in that respect, you don't 100% support cultural relativism. You see that that rule can be broken when harm has been caused. Right?
If there's no harm, it's okay. Just let them be what they want to be.
Okay. Great. I see Ndeve's hand is up. Go ahead, Ndeve.
In as far as cultural relativism is concerned, any culture, white, black, yellow, green, if people are being harmed by certain cultural practices, because it is not all cultural practices that are harmful, otherwise that culture would not exist. You see what I mean? So some practices are harmful, but the most practices are not harmful. So those that are harmful, I think they should be stopped. We should, by all means. Cannibalism, because it causes issues. So definitely it should be stopped. As to a lion eating a warthog, and the lion is not thinking about the warthog, it's just like me. I go to my backyard and beans, and I eat them while they are still. That's what we say, because we just pick them from the backyard, like, you know, those kitchen gardens. That it is just, it's just close by, and you're eating them while they are still breathing, like your vegetables are still breathing. There's nothing wrong with the lion eating its warthog while it is still. I love eating my beans, not from the market, not from the grocery store, but from my backyard when they're still breathing. Same with my sukuma wiki while it's still breathing. So, and I know, Morioki, today you've been preaching vegetarianism a lot. I am going to tell you, I don't know where you garden, but where I garden, I kill a lot of things while I'm going for beans, while I'm doing vegetables. Worms and all sorts of things, you cut them into two. You don't want them eating your vegetables, you kill them, you crush them, because they are eating my vegetables. So, you know, while I'm doing vegetables, I kill a lot of other things that I don't even eat. You know, it's better that that lion was eating a warthog. It killed it and it ate it, so it didn't go to waste. So much for for vegetarians. Yeah, so much for vegetarian. Now, the one on colonialism and disruption, or whatever disruption that they might have, were they immoral or were they moral? When I look back at colonialism,
actually, Ndeve, as you're answering that question, tell us what standard you are using, because that's the question Wandalo asked. He said, if you people don't believe in objective moral values, then what standard are you using to judge that colonialism was wrong?
Yes. Okay. And I am going to straddle the whole road, because just like everything, you see, I just said that there's no culture that is altogether harmful. Otherwise, those people wouldn't exist. They would have harmed themselves to extinction. Therefore, also, colonialism was not altogether bad. And what standards am I going to use on colonialism? We learned to read and to write. We somehow learned to administrate our own country. We even learned enough of law to make our own constitution. We learned religion, and then in time, some people have come to learn that no, we did not even need that religion, because that God they brought us, we don't need. So there must definitely, according to, in my own view, there must have been something good that came with colonialism. There was the bad, the good, and the ugly. And I've mentioned some of the good, but the ugly was the people who were killed during, even before people started agitating for their independence. There was killing, there was bad, there was pillaging, there was land that they took the best land for themselves because they knew which was the best land. You are not going to find them settling in Ukambani, because that was not where the good land was. For some reason, they did not know that there was a very good land in Western Kenya. I don't know. Or it was too far from Nairobi. Yeah. So, yes, there was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And remember, they were coming to stay. They were not coming to Kenya so that they can live. They did the infrastructure because they meant to stay. They did the railway, they did the roads because they wanted to stay. They were coming to the colony to stay. So they did the infrastructure. And in fact, they also helped some of the natives to go to school. By the time I went to school in 1965, we still had the colonial mentalism mentality. And I'm going to tell you, my standard 1, 2, 3, my primary school was really good because things seemed to be going quite well, because I think the educational officers, and they were being feared a lot. The educational officer and the assistant educational officer, they were feared people. If they were seen coming to the school, everybody was disturbed. So the administration was working well. The administration of schools, we got books, we got pencils, we got stuff. There was Kenya, or something called Kenya Schools Equipment Scheme, something like that. They brought stuff to schools, and nobody stole them, and if they did, maybe not as much. Yeah. So I am just saying that the standard I am going to use to measure colonialism will be what the remnants, what we have, the remnants of the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is the standard that we have to use. Now, have we done better than they did? I'm not going to be very loud about that. I'm going to be very low. I'm going to lower my voice because I'm not going to say that we did better than they did, but it is our mess. It's not another person's mess. It's our mess. It's not somebody else's mess. When it is your mess, you know you did the mess, you go and clean it up. So it's our mess, we clean it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndebe, for that nuanced perspective. Now, let me give my contribution on those two questions, and we call it a day. In fact, I was hoping I would hear from Mark, but I see he has logged out. Damn, I just wanted him to cough a bit. Muruki wanted to say something before I make my contribution.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think for me, my belief is secularism would have worked because the slave masters and the colonialists, they're all Christians. So despite being Christians, they couldn't see they were doing wrong. So I believe if they were secular, they would have seen right and wrong. But they were believers and they still couldn't see the wrong in what they were doing. Even in apartheid, most were Christians. So I think their religion failed us there. Religion failed. So I'll choose to have been secular. Thanks.
Okay, I think, Moroki, what you mean is secular humanism, not just being secular, because you can be secular in that you're non-religious, but you are maybe a nihilist. You don't believe in any morals.
Okay, yeah. Secular, sorry, I meant secular.
Secular humanism. Okay. Fantastic. In fact, you took the words right out of my mouth. When it comes to my answer to this question, I don't know, I look like I'm hanging. I don't know whether you can still hear me, people.
Yeah, I can hear you hung a bit. You hung. Yeah, you hung a bit.
Okay, I'm back. So my answer to Wadalo's question, what standard are you using? I'm using the secular humanism standard. Let the religious people not assume that because we have left God, that we don't have moral standards or moral values. In secular humanism, we believe that you need to advance human well-being. You don't defer to a God or a creature outside beyond us as humanity. You use your own reasoning to do so. You advance human well-being or reduction of harm. And other secular humanism principles include empathy and altruism. The principle of empathy does not apply to colonialism because the colonialist comes and imposes themselves on other people and they steal your resources. They take your land, they throw you in a reserve somewhere, and then they oppress you using the state. So if they put themselves in our shoes as the African natives, then they would not have done what they had done. Yes, I do concede what Ndebe said. Colonialism brought modernity to us. It brought the train. It brought the education system, etc. It's how they did it that is the problem. It's how oppressive the regime was that is the problem. It could have been a different project where they treated us as equals, as partners, where they don't come in and plunder our resources or kill us or impose their rule on us. So the solution to colonialism, the solution to slavery, and all of these major historical atrocities is empathy. If you put yourself in the shoes of the target you're considering, then you wouldn't engage in colonialism, you wouldn't engage in slavery. The principle of empathy is crucial is central to secular humanism. So that's what I would tell Wandalo. Now, on this issue of cultural relativism, I think it does have downsides. And you guys have mentioned some of them. Maybe let me just clarify some more. Cultural relativism can be a problem when you have several cultures intermingling. And I have to clarify, what is cultural relativism? The belief that somebody's ethics is determined by their culture. Somebody's sense of right and wrong is determined by their culture. So according to the Akan people, it is okay to marry your cousin. But according to some other culture, it is not okay. Or according to the Samburu, it is okay to do female genital mutilation. But according to a different culture, we don't. The culture here in Nairobi, we don't ascribe to that perspective. That's cultural relativism. You live and let live. So the problem with that mindset is that when you bring together three different cultures, let's just say it's three different cultures. There's this culture that believes in a certain practice, maybe let's say the one of killing albinos. Then there is a second culture that does not. And then there's a third culture that is in between, that maybe can consider the context or something of that sort. So how do we decide how to live if we have all of these various cultures coming together? We are at an impasse. That is the reason why I'm saying, to some extent, I am a moral subjectivist, and to some extent, I am a moral objectivist. In that context, you have to have a universal moral law that is applied, or let me not call it law, but principle that is applied among all those cultures so that they can decide how to live. And in that respect, the universal moral principle that I would go for is reducing harm. So automatically, the killing of albinos would be a no-no. So cultural relativism is a problem when you have various cultures, multicultural societies, and that's where the world is heading to. Most countries have a mix of cultures. So if you just live and let live, that is how injustice continues. We have cases in Britain, there's a very high percentage of women that are undergoing FGM. Why? Because of cultural relativism. They're saying it is immoral according to us, but according to them, it is moral. So they don't really follow through on the issue. Yeah. So that can be a problem. How do we live in a multicultural society when we adhere to cultural relativism? We need to go for a universal moral principle. Another problem I see with it is on the idea of moral progress. I had said this before, that if you live and let live, then societies will never get better. We will watch the genocide happening in Rwanda in the mid-90s, and we will say, you know what, it's their culture. It's their culture to despise members of the Tutsi tribe. So there's nothing we can do about it. But if you adhere to some objective moral values, you will say, you know what, it is wrong. It is wrong because it's causing harm to another human being. So at least with objective morality, you are able to improve society when it has certain harmful practices, things like apartheid, things like American segregation. If we adhere to cultural relativism, then the Black people would be limited to a certain segment of society, while white people were allowed to go everywhere they want. And that would never have changed because the cultural relativist has no moral ground to correct another culture. Yes, so that's my take. Overall, I would have to say on this topic that there are upsides and downsides to both schools of thought. What we go for as non-believers and as Dorcas specifically, because not all people are humanists, is secular humanism. Humanism adheres to various principles. There are several principles, but key among them, empathy as well as well-being, advancing human well-being, and using reason and science to make ethical decisions, not divine commands. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I don't know if there's anybody who has a final. I assumed what you said was final, but if you have another final remark, the final remark, anybody? Let's hear from Juliana. Juliana, you've not said anything. Oh, okay. Moroki, I see your hand is up. Just hold on a bit. Juliana, karibu.
Thank you. I have been listening to this very interesting discussion. I've learned a lot. And of course, I was also working, so that's why I couldn't participate as much. But most important, this was all different. It's nice to see all the various points of view. It's too bad we didn't have the theist, Mandolo, who left in the middle. That is too bad. We should corner him and sort of just sit him down and just not let him leave. Anyway, it's fun. It was fun. I enjoyed myself as usual. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. These theists, they are cowards, number one. Yes, Murioki, go ahead.
I just want things. I want to add human beings make morals. Then remember, this God is also man-made. So we make morals and we also make God. God is also made by us. That's critical. Thanks.
Indeed. Concept of God is man-made. So guys, thank you so much. Oh, Deve's hand is up. Go ahead, Deve.
Yeah, sorry, it was just a final point well, because Wandalo is gone, I can dare say that even him as a Christian, and he is supposed to follow the new laws and the old laws, he doesn't do that because it's a big load on any one person to carry. So he will be hard pressed to say how he can say that he's following the law of God when he doesn't even follow a tenth of it. It wouldn't be possible to follow a tenth of it because it's a very heavy load. You are not supposed to do this. You can't gather sticks on Sabbath day, which means that you can't turn on your stove. I mean, gather sticks was how they used to make fire then. Now we turn on our stove. So on Sabbath day, you can't turn on the stove. And the serious Jews, the people, Orthodox Jews, they don't cook on Sabbath day. You can't gather sticks. And since we don't gather sticks anymore, you know what we do? We turn on something. You can't turn it on. You cannot go into an. I know some Orthodox Jews that cannot go into an elevator. If you live high on the 50th floor, you are going home on the stairs of the Sabbath day. So there's just an impracticability of there having been a God who handed these moralities. I'm going to call them moralities. I'm not going to call laws. I'm going to call moralities because we were talking about morality today. So yeah, that's my conclusion. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Deve. In fact, I'd mentioned that example when I was talking about divine command theory, and I can predict that if Wandala was here, he would have said, but that's the Old Testament. He would have said that. And our response will come in like two discussions. We've set it aside as the events team. That's a topic, that's an upcoming topic. In fact, it's titled exactly that. But that is the Old Testament. And then, semicolon, does Jesus fix the evils or wrongs in the Old Testament? That's what we're going to discuss. I think 2 meetings from today. So we put a pin on that one. I see Stano's hand is up. Go ahead.
Okay, I think you have already addressed what I wanted to say, but I will say something by saying, yes, they will say it's the Old Testament, just the way you have answered, Endeavor, but still we can ask like this: if the moral is objective according to them, and that objective comes from God, how come the same God is keeping changing his morality? He says it's okay to enslave. He says it's okay to kill other people who are doing work on Sabbath or who are not part of your tribe. You can steal their land and kill them and take the virgin, little girls as yourself. But now you want to tell us now he have come up with a new thing called New Testament, and he say we love each other. Does it mean God have now changed his morality? That means his morality is not objective. He keep changing it like a subjective morality. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfectly said. Oh my goodness. Yes. In fact, I don't even want to dilute that message. Let that be the last thing that the viewers hear. Guys, I wish you all